Wing it. If you got something to say, say it.
Yeah, I'm going to lead off the discussion of the trade deadline.
Hello. We are live. It's Monday night. We have identical cousins here next to me on the right. They think alike. They walk alike. At times they even talk alike. No, actually, Merrill's got a fantastic voice for this. But we've been looking forward to getting the twins on at some time, and this is on August 2nd. It's their debut on the Legend Network. And we're here to talk baseball. We got the trade deadlines here. I want to make one mention of something because there's something I said I want to correct. Did you know there was a trade today?
No. How?
Yeah, that's the question is how. It's like, yeah, it's illegal. It's against the rules.
Axford?
Yeah, John Axford was traded from Toronto to Milwaukee for cash.
Nobody's seen Heidner Hair of Axford. I saw him at a bar somewhere. Nobody's seen Axford for 3 years.
He pitched really well for Team Canada in the qualifying going into the Olympics. Really? And that's why he was signed by Toronto. But the point being is that they're allowed to make trades as long as they don't involve anybody on anybody's 40-man roster. So that's why that trade was allowed.
Oh, I didn't know that was the exception, though.
I didn't know either, but I thought we'd inform people to start off, and then I'll let you know.
We need to do that. That's a big deal.
Well, does that mean they can make trades through the end of the season as long as somebody's not on a roster?
Well, the thing is, you can't involve anything on a 40-man roster, so it would take a player like John Axford to be any kind of meaningfulness. He was a guy that has experience in the pros, was signed to a minor league contract, not put on the 40-man roster, and as a relief pitcher, could find some use in the big leagues now. The truth is, you might see a trade, but it'll involve a minor leaguer for a minor leaguer, and it really won't impact the pros this year. You know what I'm saying? Because both sides, the guy has to be not on the 40-man roster. You know.
Okay.
So, anyway, whenever I said something on the air last week where I said you couldn't do it at all. Apparently, there's a carve out in the rule for one thing, and I wanted to correct myself. And with that, I'll leave it to Mitch to talk about.
The first trade, we got a bunch of trades, and I put out to 2 of my fantasy leagues, put out to 3 of my grandsons to beg them to join the audience. So I've got to go in the chat room because I told them they could ask questions or make comments. And here I want to talk about the trade of Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the Dodgers for Josiah, I would say Hosiah, but they call it Josiah Gray and Ruiz. Kilbert, I believe it's Kilbert.
It's Keybert. It's a weird name.
Keybert Ruiz. They were labeled in the media as the Dodger number 1 and 2 prospects, which may be true, but I rechecked the MLB top 50 prospects, and they are about 41 and 42, which are still good prospects. Not as good as what Minnesota got for Berrios, but they are good prospects. Now, I only have one thing to say, and I'll let you respond. Trey Turner was approached about an extension and blew them off, okay? Because I didn't like it that Trey Turner's a young guy. The Nationals are one of the oldest teams in baseball. They need to get younger. This guy is young. Why are you trading some guy that's young? Not only did he blow off any attempt at renegotiating, which, by the way, the agents don't want you to renegotiate. This is real hard to understand. They get a bigger commission with a free agent contract than a renegotiation, generally. So the agents, Scott Burrows should have had nothing to do with it, but that's neither here nor there. Not only did Turner blow them off, but this fool goes on social media and says he doesn't want to play in the West Coast. Really? You're headed to Dodger land and you're going to announce up front on social media you don't want to play in the West Coast? Hey, dude, honesty is the best policy, except when honesty is not the best policy. You don't tell the fan base, I don't want to be here.
Well, he was channeling his inner Eli Manning, who famously did that to the San Diego Chargers, which is how he ended up becoming a member of the New York Giants. But I have to say, you look at how long it took the Nationals to win a championship. You look at the fact that the Dodgers went from 1988 to 2020, I guess it was, last year to win a championship. And from a Dodger point of view, you make this deal they made the other day because when you have that window open, you really want to keep it open. It's very hard to do. I think, Doug, maybe only 2 or 3 teams have had successive world championships in the last 40 or 50 years. It's very rare. So I think that's one of the reasons they leaped at this deal. I mean, those 2 players they gave up, those are difficult players to trade away, Kiebert and Gray.
Well, I would have demanded Gavin Lux, Merrill. I would have demanded.
I was surprised. As Gavin Lux had.
There's no job for Gavin Lux, Douglas.
Yeah,
Gavin Lux's role.
There's no space for Gavin Lux in the Los Angeles Dodgers situation. Right. If Trey Turner's there, you probably would have wanted that guy back. I'm not a big fan of that trade. I mean, the Dodgers got 2 all-star players for literally people that might be good. You know,
it's nothing but risk. It's nothing but risk reward.
You know, I think about a couple years ago, the Dodgers made a trade at the deadline to acquire Manny Machado, and they traded away Dean Kramer and Yusniel Diaz, and both these guys were top 100 prospects, and everyone said no. And the big thing was everyone said the Dodgers ripped them off, and then this year for some reason the bar is lower. It's like I don't think that's much better. The one, you know. Maybe Gray was a little better prospect than Kramer. I know we think less of Kramer now because we've seen him a little bit, and he has flashes of decency, but he looks pretty average. I just kind of think I think that it had you made the trade those 4 guys for Trey Turner, that would have been enough. And then 3 months of Max Scherzer is a bit of a throw in on top of that. You know, this is the guy in your fantasy league who makes that trade at the end of the year trying to bolster his dynasty, who's just done with the season and wants to make one trade to get it over with. So he sends all his players to one team and moves on. You know what I mean?
Let me ask Douglas and Merrill, in your opinion, among the 100+ players traded, what was arguably the smartest deal of the week?
I'm voting for the Yankees acquiring Anthony Rizzo.
The reason I couldn't vote for that is because that was a very, very stupid deal for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Whereas I would vote for the smartest deal was Starling Marte for Jesus Luzardo. Well, that was a win on both sides. Miami's win's not for this year. Luzardo's a good prospect. We all know Marlins have they're one of the teams that is scared of paying players, and so Marte's salary was too big. It helps both sides of the coin. That was a smart deal.
Yeah, I'm not like Joe Tardik. Joe Tardik knows all the prospects. I understand the guy that the Marlins got back has got some great potential, but I don't know anything about him.
Did they get somebody else in that deal?
They got 2 players, I think, but I'm talking about the outfielder they got back in the deal. I have to look.
Oh. You're talking about the deal that they made with the Houston when they got Brian De La Cruz?
That's who I was thinking of, Brian De La Cruz. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's something to like. There's something to like about Brian De La Cruz, and I think that's a future. But they got him from Houston for the Yimi Garcia deal.
Douglas, I think that Marte will help the Athletics tremendously, but I tend to agree with Merrill's argument on Rizzo because Rizzo doesn't just bring an essential left-handed bat.
He's a team leader.
He brings club leadership and morale. This guy is a terrific young man. He brings something to the Yankees that you cannot hardly quantify. This guy is going to be a huge difference. And he's also he can wear out that right field porch, Douglas.
I guess it goes the way that you evaluate trades. I'm a little different.
It was bad for the
that's what I'm saying. Like you have a thing in fantasy sports where people will have a grade the trade segment. And whenever you have a trade that grades out as an A, that means that you robbed somebody. And under those terms, the Yankees got an A for this Rizzo trade. They gave a bag of beans for that. It's like
they didn't give up Davey Garcia. They didn't give up the kid. Who is the kid? The outfielder that's going to be what's his name? You know what I'm talking about. He came up for a cup of coffee, just went back. No,
the Yankees. They have a really good prospect who's like 17 years old, Jason Dominguez. But outside of that, what are you talking about?
This is Florial I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. That is actually the problem. That's the
Florial. Why didn't the Cubs demand Florial?
Because he's not very good, and they got Kevin Alcantara, who's a Florial clone. I mean, it's like those are the guys that are like, who cares? You know what I mean? Florial has shown enough that we don't think much of him as a prospect anymore. He's been called up a number of times this year, and people just go through the thing. Yeah, Jason Dominguez is the young guy. Did I get his last name wrong? But there's no way he's trading him. I'm just going in the bullpen here. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me throw another question out to you guys. What was the worst trade not made by a team that needed pitching help?
San Diego.
I would say that there's a guest in our chat room who asked the question, do you think Boston should have acquired a pitcher at the deadline to help?
Absolutely. Yes.
Boston or San Diego, they both desperately needed a starting pitcher.
San Diego's desperate. San Diego has no starting rotation right now.
Yeah. But you sit there and you look at some of these teams that rebuilt. Like, I'm a Cub fan. I watch NL Central closely. I think that even though the Brewers are in first, that thing is somewhat up in the air. The Cubs are now not in the talk. St. Louis, what did they do to bolster their bullpen? They acquired J. Happ and
Lester
and John Lester. and would we be talking differently about Boston had they gotten John Lester? I don't know. I just don't think it was out there. It's like Scherzer went, Berrios went. Was there any other pitchers that we thought were really, really good that went? There were a couple prospects like Simeon Woods Richardson or whatever, but I'm saying guys that pitched this year. I don't think so. And I had a list of these guys here somewhere. And
the Boston Red Sox should have gotten Matthew Boyd. They should have done something. Their pitching is tanking.
Tanking. A halfway decent pitcher, and on a thing where I'm a Cub fan, it's like, why the hell did the Cubs keep Cal Davies? Take anything for him. He's on a 1-year contract. He's done at the end of the year. He's not worth re-signing.
Cal Davies would have helped the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, why didn't you go the send us something? Nothing great. You don't have to do something. Send us some guy from your minor leagues, and we're good. Did not happen. That's right. I think it was pitchers. Not many pitchers have actually went here. I have actually a list of all the trades that I put together. I was trying to kind of divide it up by teams. And in last week, 128 players were traded, 47 trades. I should be able to do it by pitcher, sort by pitcher, but I can't. But yeah, there's some pretty. I mean, every team needs a pitcher. Only a couple teams got one.
Douglas, you want to hear one of the oddities of this great trading day? All three of your Chicago Cubs, middle of the lineup hitters who were traded elsewhere, hit home runs in their first games with their new teams. All three of them. It's hard for me to dislike those guys. Javi Baez, if you've been listening all year, is my favorite current baseball player. Anthony Rizzo is just Cubs class most of the way through. Chris Bryant is a little bit of a different story because he's got animosity toward the team, but I've loved everything he's done. I hope they help out the other teams. My favorite oddity from this, and I said this in the chat room this morning, is that because whenever you get a chance to take a dig at the Yankees, take a dig at the Yankees. That there are more New York Yankees players right now with Cubs World Championship rings than Yankees World Championship rings. I like that oddity.
Is that right?
Well, they got Chapman and Rizzo. That's two. And I think the only guy that's still around from their original the Yankees World Series is Brett Gardner. Because it's been over a decade since they've been in the World Series.
Yeah, I think Gardner has one from Oh, no, they lost the series to Arizona. Does Gardner have a ring?
I don't know. I should look it up, but I know there's 2 Cubs rings on that team, and there might not be any.
Well, what do we think about Chris Bryant trade to the Giants?
I think that's a great trade for them. The crazy thing about it is that he's the ideal guy for that team because the Giants are winning, and I still think they're going to win the division. And they're winning. They're winning with this kind of I'll say it's like a Tampa Bay-esque kind of thinking, where there's a lot of interchangeability of players, and it's one of the great things like that they've done is when Belt went down, Darren Ruff came up and played well. When Ruff went down, Lamont Wade came up and played well. They seem to just fill people in without any problem.
They are the Tampa Bay of the National League. They find a way to scratch out wins. I keep waiting. They're going to fall any moment, and they don't. They are nearing 70 wins.
And the thing about Bryant is that Bryant can actually play. Literally, he can play 6 positions. Probably you don't want him at shortstop, but he has played a game at shortstop this year. But he, in the All-Star game when they interviewed him live on the field, he said that his favorite position to play is center field, and he's played a good number of games in center field. So he can play left, right, center, third base, first base for them. They'll find a way for him to play, and it'll allow them to do the thing that San Francisco does well, which Tampa did well, is keep the hot hand in the lineup. It's like I got Belt and Wade both healthy, and Wade's hot. I'll put this guy here and Bryant at third, and now I have Wilmer Flores is hot. We'll move Bryant into the left field, and we'll play Flores at third. They're going to keep their hot bats in the lineup, and I think that that's probably. It's hard to go against the Rizzo deal for the Yankees, but that trade is really good for the Giants. Very, very smart. The ideal player for them.
Can I digress off the trades for 1 second?
Sure.
I didn't recognize Joey Gallo without his beard. How does the Major League Players Association allow the Yankees to continue to enforce this clean face, which I absolutely 100% respect?
How do they?
I've never been a Yankee fan in my life, but when they shot all of these kids at Virginia Tech, the New York Yankees stopped in Blacksburg and actually went out on the baseball field at Virginia Tech and played the Virginia Tech baseball team in a scrimmage, and I'll never forget it. It's one of the biggest class acts I have ever seen in all the years I've been following baseball. But how do they get away with this? No other team can do this.
Can I help you with this?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I think the stance of the Lords of Baseball is to not interfere in the personnel policies, the administrative protocols of the major league teams, and that therefore, if there's a team among the many, and the Yankees is it, which seems to have this fairly strict, I don't call it a dress code, I call it an appearance code. The position of the major leagues of the hierarchy is, well, that's the Yankees policy. We're not going to involve ourselves in that. The thing about it is, it's almost a third rail. If you're traded if you are traded to the Yankees, I keep one of my best examples was a guy they wanted for at least 4 or 5 years, Jason Worth. I can't imagine that Jason Worth would have followed that policy, but I can tell you what I do know. Had they made a trade for him and he had not followed the policy, he would have been traded to somebody else in a week.
Who was
I
mean, as iconic as Worth was for his hair, Johnny Damon was. He took the trade or this whatever signing, and he cut his hair.
He did
when he went to the Yankees.
But think about this. Not only is it rare for a team to require this, but imagine the competitive advantage that they could be losing on free agents and trades with players who don't want to shave and won't go there. We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't.
There's got to be some players that say, I'm not going there and have to shave my beard.
We don't know that, Mitch. We don't know that they aren't. We don't know that they might have had negotiations trying to sign a really well-known player that never got past the point of the player saying, I'm coming as I am and who I am, or I'm not coming. And so no deal is made and nobody ever hears about it. It's new. It's maybe a revelation in the abstract or in default, you know?
Well, Andrea says, name me a player that doesn't want to play for the Yankees. She makes a good point.
There's that Yankee thing.
Andrea makes an excellent point. Everybody wants to be a Yankee. Well, not everybody.
Yeah, I imagine there are some that don't want to be in the Yankees.
But a lot of players, she makes a valid point there. She does.
So there are. I heard this thing, the same question worded in other non-baseball spaces, saying like, I couldn't do this at my job and say I'm just going to wear this beard if they said the thing. And there is a little difference in baseball. One is they have an antitrust exemption, which means that you can't actually take the lawsuit to the courts. I'm sorry, you can't take it to the EOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment, about job discrimination. You have to go to the courts to make the difference. And I don't think anybody is that strongly attached to their beard that they want to go through this. That's part of what I think. Whereas if you were in McDonald's and you wanted to keep your beard, you might go find another 8,000 McDonald's employees and do a class action suit kind of thing.
But Douglas, there's another imponderable in this whole equation. How come the Major League Baseball Players Association is so silent on this issue? I cannot believe they haven't had some player, some point in time, or some group of players raise this as an issue. I can't believe maybe it has never been an issue in a collective bargaining agreement. But I'd be surprised if it had never been raised.
You guys are a little bit older than me, so maybe you have a first-hand remembrance of this.
You're kind.
For me, this is me reading stories in Baseball Digest. But in the 70s, there was a thing about there were more teams that had this kind of policy, and somebody on the Oakland A's decided to grow a mustache, and he got kind of lucky, and the whole team sort of revolted and grew mustaches. Do you remember this?
Yes, I can't remember who the player was. Wasn't Rodney Fingers?
I don't remember who the first player was, but that's when Fingers grew that mustache. That's when Reggie Jackson grew his iconic mustache. But it was in that same period of time. And yeah, when they banded together, the team couldn't stop them from growing mustaches.
Let's go back to our trades. What about the trade of Jose Berrios from the Twins for Austin Martin and right-handed pitcher Simeon Woods Richardson?
The risk you always take when these kind of conversations is the famous trade of Larry Anderson to the Boston Red Sox for a little-known, unheralded guy by the name of Craig Bagwell. Wasn't there a player named Bagwell who was pretty good?
Jeff Bagwell.
Jeff, wasn't there a guy named Bagwell who was a pretty good player?
Well, wasn't Doyle Alexander traded to the
John Smoltz
for an unheralded John Smoltz? But my question is, from my perspective, the Blue Jays desperately needed another top-tier starter. I don't think Berrios is a number one starter.
But he gave them a good start in his first outing, and he doesn't have to be the one there. Ryu is.
He's a number two starter. What do you think, Doug?
I think it's true. He's a guy that we want. I've come down pretty heavy on a lot of pitchers that people love, and I think it's because we're trying to make a lot of number two starters into number ones, and Berrios is one of those guys. He is a good pitcher. Being a number two starter in the major leagues is pretty darn impressive. And with Toronto, that's a good pickup that wise. I'm sort of kind of dumbfounded by the fact I really thought the Twins would be better this year. And it's like the idea of them
it's incredible. Who thinks Detroit's going to be better than Minnesota? You could have won 100 to 1 odd bets in Las Vegas in March 1st on that.
Yeah,
this is ridiculous.
Sure thing, Merrill. Go ahead.
Can I interject something?
Yes.
Our young man, Hosea Gray, has just been given high fives in the dugout after leaving after 5 complete innings, 4 hits, 1 run.
He's going to be a stud. This is why I say you can't judge these trades. It's hard to judge these trades at face value. You're getting a 23 or 24-year-old stud who will not be available even for arbitration for probably how many years, Doug? 3 years? 4 years?
Oh, is it for 4 years, isn't it?
I mean, 3 years to arbitration, then you get 3 years arbitration.
All right, but you're talking he won't be eligible to be a free agent until what, 6 years, 5 years?
And while it's true, the Philadelphia Phillies
six years.
Yeah, the Phillies had never seen this guy, but he had never seen them either. When you consider tonight the likely pressure he was feeling, pitching for a new team and going in an environment where they have traded a Hall of Fame pitcher, I think it's pretty amazing what he did.
That's pretty. No, it's pretty good. I would caution, like, we have a tendency to do this thing and see one good game and go, see, we were right about this. There's still a lot to remain to be
That's
seen.
right. That's right.
Douglas, what do you know about this guy, Austin Martin? I understand he's a number 15 prospect.
Every year there's a draft in Major League Baseball, right? And the draft goes in a certain order, and he was the 4th guy picked. But at the end of the draft, the people that are the pundits around it will talk about this guy was drafted, but the guy with the best hit tool, like Keston Hiura was the guy with the best hit tool that year. The year after him was Bryce Harper. The year after him was Andrew Vaughn. Austin Martin is the guy who everyone thinks has the best hit tool of anyone drafted in 2020, and so those kind of guys, especially when they're from college, not from some high school,
Right.
are guys that you see that could be, from our standpoint, a relatively quick impact one way or the other. It can go really poorly like it is with Hiura. It can go, it can go pretty good like it's going with Andrew Vaughn, but we don't know. But the truth is, he'll probably help that team out sooner than later.
Okay.
And if you really look at if there's any hole in that Toronto offense, Austin Martin is a shortstop outfielder. He should be able to play third. If there's any hole, it's Kevin Biggio, and that's not much of a hole in their offense, mind you. So I like it. I like. I mean, they got a top 5 pick, and they got a guy, Simeon Wood Richardson, who throws upper 90s, close to 100, who has been traded twice because teams have really wanted him. He was part of the Stroman deal. Now he's part of the Berrios deal. It's like those are 2 good players in return for the thing. I think I would have taken that trade would be one of the trades I really liked. Both teams did well. That's a trade that we would grade the trade as a C, but in my mind it's an A because both teams did well.
Okay. See, I kind of consider the Dodger trade with the Nats to be an A for both sides because the Dodgers they've got Will Smith and they've got Barnes. They really didn't have a place for Ruiz.
Well, no, yeah.
They've got
Dodgers did great.
They've got Dustin May. They've got Dustin May coming back. They're
No,
loaded.
You're arguing why the Dodgers did well in this trade, and everybody agrees with that. You got to make the argument why what do you think the Nationals did in this?
I think
it didn't help the Nationals to free up
They were losing Scherzer anyway, and they were going to lose Turner. He already said he was going to hit the free agent market, and he'll want $250 to $300 million. And he's a great player, by the way.
Mark Zuckerberg reported this afternoon. Mark, you know who Mark Zuckerberg is?
Yeah, Washington Post.
Who's Mark Zuckerberg?
No, I think
he's a beat reporter.
I'm joking.
I think he's maybe with MLB or at the Athletic, but he reported today, citing sources in his reporting. Usually, I guess I don't have an example of it being. I don't have an example of a bad story or an erroneous story. That the Nationals, at the beginning of the COVID season in spring training, had a discussion with Trey Turner and anybody know who his agent is? Is it Boris? I don't know.
I don't know. I can look it up.
I don't think it is Boris. At any rate, they had a discussion about signing him to a long-term contract in 2020, and ostensibly it was such a non-starter and such an unpleasant event that they never came back to Turner this is according to Zuckerberg's reporting, never came back to Turner or his agent for any subsequent discussion about a contract extension, including in the spring training period or the off season preceding this season or during this season. And that they essentially gave up and said, we're not going to be able to keep the man, so we'll make other plans.
Well, I mean, they did have another year of control. I mean, it was arbitration.
But that's the oddity of it, Douglas. They had another year to talk to him, and unless this story is erroneous, nobody made an attempt to talk to him.
Well, I mean, there is something that's going on with the owners and players when it comes to money issues, and Trey Turner wouldn't be the first person to be frustrated by contract negotiations. I mean, hell, every Cub was, George Springer was with the Astros, Mookie Betts was with the Red Sox.
Yeah,
the big thing is that I don't think it's that weird for a guy of Trey Turner's talent to say when he's offered something like he got $13 million in arbitration for this year, right? It's not a big deal if they say. I mean, the league, like the what do they call that? The minimum salary you have to offer somebody to keep somebody in, like it was like $17.5 million this year. Like if somebody wants to be a free agent,
it's called the arbitration salary.
Yeah, qualified offer. The qualifying offer,
which is going to go away in the next collective bargaining.
Well, I'm just saying the qualifying offer is $5 million higher than what Trey Turner was paid just to get there. So you would think that I wouldn't think anything of Trey Turner saying, you probably should give me $18 million. That's at least the qualifying offer, right? And we don't know what they were given, and that could feel insulting to a guy of that talent. I've never had that talent or anything, so I don't know how it's to be insulted like that. But Trey Turner probably does. I know Mookie Betts does. I know George Springer does. I know Chris Bryant does.
That's an excellent point. I didn't realize they could go that much higher on the.
Okay, but I'm going to make an unpopular statement.
They can pay him whatever they want. Just arbitration generally speaking, the way arbitration works is the player says I want A, and the team says I want to play B, and they give him somewhere. They give him somewhere in between. Very few times do they go one way or the other.
I'm going to make a politically incorrect statement about long-term contracts. The reason Mitch Hartson would never be a general manager is that I would put in every long-term contract of 3 years and above production targets for every year of that contract, and if the production targets are not met, the compensation would be appropriately adjusted. Because this idea that Rendon is getting $30+ million from the Angels and is sat out the entire year, not with a serious injury, not with an oblique. He's been out 80% of this season with a hamstring. Come on, man.
I mean, whatever situation that you would.
He's screwing that team every way from Sunday. Then he tells Madden this weekend, I don't think I'm going to be able to come back in August.
Well,
this guy's taking an entire season off at $30 million, big ones. Come on, man.
As George Hodgman points out in the chat room, not many people would sign that deal. And if such a deal could theoretically exist, there would have to be an exception for people who are injured, because you would wind up having situations where the guy has to hit 25 home runs to make this amount of money, and so they just hold him out.
If I were the GM, I would cite all the injuries, and I would cite for each injury the mulligans you get for that injury, because some injuries are worse than other injuries. Thoracic outlet syndrome. I wouldn't dock Strasburg. That thoracic outlet syndrome is awful. A hamstring? Really? A hamstring? He's walking. It's not like he tore the hamstring, Douglas. It's a strained hamstring. He's been out for months. And then he tells Madden yesterday, I don't think I'm going to be able to come back in August. Why don't you just go home for the rest of the year? Go back to Houston and stay with your family. There's got to be in these long-term contracts some provision for production that you can't just sign and get this huge. Look at Jordan Zimmerman, over $100 million. He was a loser from day one with Detroit. I don't think he pitched a half a dozen quality games for the Tigers the whole time he was here in 6 years.
Merrill, you have any insight here? Okay, you don't have to. Are you
I
muted?
just want the Bobby Bonilla. All I want besides my two front teeth. All I want besides my two front teeth.
I want a
Bobby
hippopotamus
Bonilla's
for Christmas.
I want Bonilla's contract.
That was a smart
there.
contract. Steve Phillips will never get a job again.
No, that was a good contract for both sides. It helped them get under the cap at the time, and Bonilla is taken care of for life. And the truth is that was long paid for in an annuity, so it doesn't cost them what it looks like. And there's a lot of other players like that. Hell, the Braves were paying Bruce Sutter up until this year, on the same sort of deal.
Here's the next question.
I read in the Daily News that every year when that kicks in, Bonilla has a little party with his wife out wherever the Queens, wherever he lives, with a bottle of Dom Perignon.
Can I mention something before you start, Mitch? Something completely off topic here, where I just feel I went through a fab roll this weekend, and I went into the week because everybody was active. I wound up getting two injured outfielders to replace my injured outfielders. So I was going to go into the week with one outfielder missing, and that'd be a illegal roster. So the only other player on my team that could play outfield, I threw in there as a last-ditch hope Sunday night, and that was Joe Odell, my minor league spot guy.
He got called up today.
And he got called up today. That is awesome. I have a full roster.
You're living right.
Yeah, no, that's just if you saw me looking at a bunch of things while we were talking, I'm like, is that for real?
I have another question.
You should
Huh?
have called me. I would have given you Billy McKinney.
Hey,
What do I look like, the Dodgers?
Merrill and Douglas. My next question is, what would you argue is the dumbest trade of the last week?
Ooh, that's
This
hard.
this is easy.
Wait a minute.
It's easy.
Wait a minute.
I mean, it's like it's hard for me to get past the Dodgers Nationals deal as being among the dumbest, but there are.
I
some
don't think
dumb
it's
ones
that
out there.
dumb. I think the Nationals got value in return. I do. I can't agree with
But they also gave the two players who are head and shoulders better than just
I get
the other
no.
two players.
There's no arguing that, but they got something back. This is the dumbest. It ain't close, gentlemen. This is not close. This is a runaway, ignorant trade.
You got me.
Oh, you got the Pablo Sandoval deal, which is basically they gave Eddie Rosario.
Well, that's in the running.
They gave Eddie Rosario away for cash.
That was a big payroll dump, so I sort of get it. I'm not talking about a payroll dump because I sort of understand that.
Give me a second to pull up all the really horrible Cubs trading. If you could grade the Cubs trading this weekend, if there was a grade lower than an F minus, that's what they would get. So let's see, they traded.
It doesn't look like they got a lot in return for that talent.
No.
Yeah, I mean the Kimbrel trade was fine, but all the other ones were kind of like. All right, give me your trade. What's the bad trade? That Rizzo trade is pretty damn awful.
In my opinions, are like armpits. Everybody's got at least two.
Or as the big Aristotle, Shaquille O'Neal once said, opinions are like earlobes.
Well, I'm glad that you chose a. Never mind.
Never mind. Merrill, I know he's going to say opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Well, that was the thing. It's like he didn't want to say a-holes. So it's earlobes. Now all of a sudden, everyone's got two.
This is my first show. I didn't want to be physiologically incorrect.
Here's my nomination for the dumbest trade of the week. Astros acquire right-handed pitcher Phil Maton and catcher Yainer Diaz for outfielder Miles Straw.
I don't think that's that bad.
They traded their set. They traded. Maton is a nothing. Maton has a 4.57 ERA over 63 innings. Straw has 18 steals. He got another steal today.
Miles Straw is much more loved in the fantasy world than he is in the regular baseball world. You know, he's not that good of a player who steals bases. That's what he does. So we like him. I don't think he does a great thing.
Who's going to play center field for Houston?
The truth is, what they've seen out of Chas McCormick so far this year has been pretty darn good. And they're going to let him play center field and see how that works out.
Maybe they thought he was the straw that was going to break the Astros back.
I picked up Chas McCormick last night because he's got 10 home runs and then like 135 at bats.
That ain't half bad. That ain't half bad.
He it equates to 30 home runs as an outfielder. It does. So
The real question is he really a center fielder?
no, they're going to move Tucker to center.
That's right. Tucker's a better center fielder. Tucker's played center field in the minors a good deal. So yeah, that makes more sense.
They're still losing something on defense.
Well, yeah, Straw. That is true. I will say about Straw is that Straw was a big league defensive center fielder. That is true. He was a good one. He wasn't way up in the upper echelon. He's no Buxton or Kiermaier, but he was near that.
Okay, let's analyze this trade. Phillies acquire Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy, Hans Kraus, and Cash from the Rangers for right-handed pitcher Spencer Howard, right-handed pitcher Kevin Gowdy, and right-handed pitcher Josh Gressner.
I mean,
Gibson gave them a good first start, but the thing you have to always watch about, a guy's new in the league and nobody has seen him. Let's watch what he does after he's been around the league.
I think everything that Gibson has done in the American League this year, it's better than we had hoped for, but I think he's legitimately a good pitcher. What the Rangers gave up was essentially nothing. Kennedy, they're a team that's so bad they don't need a closer. They moved Kennedy, they moved Kennedy up there. Gibson he's on a 1-year contract, so he's not going to be around next year because he's going to ask for a lot more money than what the Rangers paid him. And they got a couple guys in the return. Spencer Howard was a highly touted prospect. If I'm right about Kevin Gowdy was the Phillies pitcher prospect of the year in 2019. So there's something there. I mean, he's going to be in their top 30 team prospects, and the Rangers need players. They signed Kyle Gibson in the offseason. They let him pitch. He pitched wonderfully, and they returned some stuff. Maybe you could argue they could have got a little bit more for that stuff, but this year, the people that were selling players were getting the short end of the stick all the time. That's not a bad return. It's not a great return, but it's not a bad return for what they gave up. And if you had said going into the year, if we did not make this trade on August 1st, if I had said before this season, the Rangers trade Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy for Spencer Howard and Kyle Gowdy, and you'd go, wow, the Rangers did well. It's like, for instance, my dislike of Jack Peterson. We turned a Jack Peterson, a mediocre John Peterson signing into a decent prospect in Bryce Ball. I got to give the Cubs credit for that. You won't hit me hitting that. It's like the Rangers did pretty good. That was not a bad trade. The only argument against them would be that could they have done better?
You're right.
I like hearing that. Say it again. Not just kidding.
Right. What about the Braves getting Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, and Adam Duvall?
And you should throw in the fact that just 7 days before they did acquire Jack Peterson, so they got 4 outfielders.
They've got
not thrown in the towel. You got to hand it to them on that, don't you think?
They've got a total of 5 or 6 outfielders, but I will say this. I consider Soler a possible steal of the trade mart. The man hit 49 home runs 2 years ago. He hit upon hard times. As Mitch, both you and Doug have said, and Andrea on this show time and time again, it's very difficult to the point of being unfair to judge people wholly on 2020 because of all of the COVID distractions and the limited schedule. But Soler had a great year for Kansas City in a ballpark that's not exactly what you would call a Homer Dome.
No, I think that Soler is the one that the only negative on Soler is that his start of the year was so bad, though he was heating up. We hope that does that stick. And the other one is that of those guys, he's got the worst glove of the bunch by a substantial.
He is a defensive liability. I agree.
But other than that, it's like I look at that team and I go, yeah, I have in many leagues Adam Duvall. I have in many leagues Jorge Soler. Admittedly, they're recent pickups with the hot. You know, like
Doug, you're a Cubs fan. I'll bet you the Cubs. I bet you a large number of Cubs fans would take Soler back tonight after the deals they made this week.
You know, I've heard when we dealt with Soler, I've heard from another podcast that I deal with sometimes, which is very is Wrigleyville Nation, and I know the guys there. It's a Cubs podcast. A lot of guys that are Cubs people would lament. They think that the Wade Davis for Soler trade was bad, especially looked bad after Soler hit 49 home runs. But I think it was a pretty reasonable deal. And yeah, right now we take Soler back because we got nothing.
Right.
We got Hank Aaron Ortega out there in left field or whatever.
Okay,
what was that about? What was that about?
Ortega's hit 5 home runs in the last 8 games or something like that. And he's like,
let me ask you, esteemed gentlemen, this one. Can anyone explain to this redneck from the sticks in farming country? Can you explain to me why the Washington Nationals would trade for catcher Ruiz from Los Angeles, catcher Drew Millis from Oakland, and catcher Riley Adams for Toronto? Are they running a catcher farm or what? They traded for 3 catchers. Count them.
You don't
1, 2, 3.
You don't have to get miffed about it.
I would say 2 things. 2 things about it. One is there's a saying that says there's no such thing as a pitcher prospect because pitcher prospects don't pan out. Catcher's prospects pan out even less frequently than pitcher's prospects.
So they're going to throw everything up against the wall.
So you sort of need 3 just to get a Roberto Perez out of the deal. The other part about it is that there are some really good catcher prospects that have good bats, but most of them don't remain catchers. Like there's a good chance that Will Smith in Los Angeles will move on to another position. You know, there was that Ramos kid in Colorado, Josh Donaldson was a catcher. They moved off the spot.
The first thing you need
better
to do,
hitters. Keibert Ruiz may move off the spot if his bat is that good.
Doug, you're right. The first thing you should do with a good catcher is take him out of catching. Bryce Harper was a catcher.
Yeah, it gives them the thing because you need more out of a catcher from a fielding side than certainly more than fantasy baseball players want.
Oh, the Atlanta Braves moved Joe Torre from catcher to first base. He batted .363 and won the National League batting championship.
Yep. Yeah, Josh Donaldson's my favorite because he did win the MVP with the one team. And he was
who's the closer for the Minnesota Twins now?
I think that they're going to give the first run to Colomé, who is not going to be able to hold the job.
Who? Colomé?
They'll probably run Duffy, but right now it's going to be a mess until Taylor Rogers returns from his injury in 15 days. If I were going, who do I want for saves on that team? Especially if he was available, I would take Taylor Rogers, or is it Tyler Rogers? Whatever Rogers is on the Twins. The lefty who's hurt, who pitched well for them as their closer a couple years ago. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's up. I was looking at the thing here. See if there's anything in the chat room. We do have some Ed Ekman's out there. Mitch Hartson, that's you. You're out there. George Hubschman. But they're talking about Craig Biggio for some reason.
Andrea is saying that Biggio is a bust, and she's right.
I think he's. I don't think he's a bust, but he's certainly not in the same category as the other guys. He's going to be a big league third baseman, but he's merely average. You know what I mean? He's not great. It says here Douglas likes the Dick Marisnick deal to the Padres, which is true. I like Dick Marisnick. I think he's a pretty good player, and they got in return for that Andrew Espinosa, who is one of the prospects that the Cubs got back. You can attach a little bit of hope for. If you remember, he's still young. He's like 20-some years old, but he was signed as a 17-year-old out of Peru, throwing 100 miles an hour as a 17-year-old. You know, maybe it's just a bullpen arm, but it'll be a terrific bullpen arm. I think that's a nice little return for Jake Marisnik. You give up very
There-
little.
There can't be more than a handful of players ever signed out of Peru. Can you name
Yeah.
me a major league star from Peru?
That was the big thing, is that he was the number one pitching prospect, and he came out of
Really?
Peru. I hope I'm right about that. It might be Venezuela.
Okay, where does Kyle Schwarber fit into the Boston lineup? And where does he play in the field?
You have to play him either a designated hitter or left field. There's a notion apparently that I've read by some in the front office that they want to make him a first baseman. That would be a really bad move.
That dog is not going
He
to
does
bark.
not have a first baseman's hands.
That dog is not going to bark.
I mean, first base is the easiest in the play. I mean, you can screw it up sometimes, but you would think that it would be in Kyle Schwarber's best interest for his career to learn to play first base.
Douglas, what I would do is I'd move Renfro to first, and I'd put Schwarber in left
there.
field. I'd put Schwarber in left field, which is a short distance to cover. That might be the easiest left field place.
That is true. Manny Ramirez looked passable as an outfielder in left field in Boston for years.
What's that?
Manny Ramirez, who was a subpar fielder, was actually okay.
I mean, the ball's going to hit the wall before you have.
Douglas stretched the field. I heard at least twice he went up down inside the scoreboard and came back out for various activities.
Say that again.
Sorry,
Manny, on a couple of occasions, left field and went into the bowels of the stadium stands behind the closed door, where the man's there with the tin numbers to put up, 3 runs in the second and 1 in the third, and would reappear when the play resumed.
No, that's a pisser that's right behind the green wall.
Oh my! I didn't say that. I just said he went in there.
Well, there's a pisser right behind the green wall. That's commonly known. Manny Ramirez used to go in there and drain the lizard, and then come back onto the field.
It isn't easy being green.
I was wrong about Anderson Espinosa. He's from Caracas, Venezuela, which is still unique.
Okay.
It's not as unique as Peru.
So, how have the forecasts changed for division winners and wild card contenders, in your humble opinion? Did it change? Has there been any real movement in the last
Well,
week?
I mean, there were a couple divisions I thought everything was sort of up for grabs in, like the NL East and NL Central. I think that the Brewers were in first place, but I don't think they were that good of a team. I think that the Mets were in first place. I didn't think they were that good a team. The two things that did happen is the Nats and the Cubs said, we're not part of this, right? Which I don't know who'll wind up winning the NL Central. I have no idea.
I think the net effect of it may not have anything to do with trades, which were marginal. But Tampa Bay and Boston have traded places as to first one in the American League East, in my opinion. And I don't know that it had anything to do with the trades, because neither one of those teams made what I would call a really impactful trade. As you said, the Red Sox desperately needed a starting pitcher and didn't do it. And who did Tampa get? I can't remember.
They made some moves, but they were.
I think they were on the margins. I don't think they made it. Well, listen, Nelson Cruz is a move.
Yeah, that's a big one. I know they got Jordan Luplow, which is the most Tampa Bay move ever, getting a guy that just hits lefties well.
Yeah.
Don't you think that the Padres are in risk of falling out of the wild card?
Yeah,
I think they have enough hitting to stay in the wild card contention, but I think the rotation problems have probably rules them out as a division winner.
What if I were to tell you that Fernando Tatis is very likely out for the season?
I had not heard that.
Yeah, I've not heard anything.
I'm telling you right now.
I know he's out with something.
He needs shoulder surgery.
Yeah, but he needed shoulder surgery a week before. We knew that. It's like everything that's coming from them is there's two things that are going on with that. One is that he got hurt before the deadline, so they didn't make any real moves for anything in that regard. But everything's coming out of them saying they're expecting him back. He expects himself back. Now, like we have a 10-day IL nowadays, so I actually give players a pass for 15 days because sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that. It's like just because he's not back the first day is not a big deal, but I don't know why he's there. It's like I was having this discussion with Andrea earlier today, and it really comes down to this. Or sorry, it was yesterday. It's like Tatis is so good that 120 games of Tatis is better than all but about 20 players in the league, and he'll be. He wants to be back. The Padres want to be back. The surgery that he has can be postponed.
One problem with Tatis needed to be coached up the way Bryce Harper was here when in his first 2 or 3 years with the Nationals. Bryce Harper was continually getting injured. Sometimes he'd be out for 2 or 3 weeks on dangerous and reckless slides when game circumstances really didn't dictate it. And no one has coached Tatis up on bagging about 2 out of 3 slides if you think you're going to make yourself prone to injury. Watch Tatis slide into base and you'll see what I'm talking about.
I mean, if you put it that way, it's like, yeah, Harper seems to have learned that, but he didn't learn it in a year. It took him a little bit of time.
No, I know they had to, actually, I think he didn't break that habit maybe until his 3rd or 4th year here. That's right. But he was always getting hurt, and a lot of those were head first slides.
Well,
sorry, I muted myself. I had the cough.
What's that?
I didn't jump in because I muted myself.
I thought we were having a cricket moment.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
We know in radio and television there's nothing more poisonous than silence. A problem that Merle and I rarely have, if you ask our family members.
Yeah, I was expecting you. I have a brother, and I love my brother like a brother, which you guys do. But the truth is, no one can piss me off like him.
What can happen? And people are closest to you can piss you off the most.
I was hoping that you guys would piss each other off somehow.
Oh, we always get pissed off.
Is there a real sore subject I can bring up right now to you guys? Like I have one with me and my brother.
Merrill used my name a couple of times when he picked up a couple of gals at the as a lounge lizard.
I tell you,
you know what the lounge lizard? You know what a lounge lizard is?
Yeah, I know what a lounge lizard is.
Are you old enough to remember when you could go to the Sheraton and you'd have a bunch of long-haired, bearded, woolly bullies playing Jimmy Buffett music? And you come up to women and ask them to dance, and if you had a cigarette in your mouth, if you got too close to their hair would catch fire because they had so much hairspray. You remember them days?
I was a little bit beyond the heavy hairspray days. That was my high school years.
You're not familiar with the lounge lizard.
I've done my share of life at the bars. I used to call.
But because Merle and I have 100% the DNA. If he gets in trouble with a woman, he can say it's me. And if he does, I get to say it's him. If I get
it was him what done it. That guy.
That's sick. So
him. He did it. Him.
What I'd like to talk about are some of the injuries that are because we have people who this show is supposed to be about fantasy.
Right.
So my question for your deliberation is what players currently on the injured list is it worth making a stretch to pick up, i.e. Mike Trout?
Oh yeah, Mike Trout's a definite.
Mike Trout's untradeable.
I got Mike Trout and Willie Adames in a trade for Tim Anderson.
I'm surprised.
Holy crap! I can't give away Tim Anderson.
Actually, Mitch, I'm surprised anybody in fantasy who has Trout would trade him. I'd hang on to him all year, whether he play or not.
He's $50 in a legacy league. You don't have to protect a guy at $50. Why would you do that when you can? If you're going to spend $50 on him, you can get him at the auction.
That's reasonable. It's like if a team is out of it and they know that they're not going to be able to keep him at his price in a legacy type league, sure. But in a redraft, you cannot. It's almost impossible to make a fair trade for a guy that's in that top 8 or 9, 10, 12 picks, because if the guy is hurt a little bit, the guy's going to want a steep discount is trading with you, and if the guy who has him is going, if this guy's not hurt, he's worth so much more than that. I was trying to look at making a trade first, like Andrea warned about Fernando Tatis, and so I just threw some balloons out there. I wasn't sure that I was going to trade Tatis before he got hurt, and like the best return trade was something like I think it was like Lance Lynn and Dansby Swanson. Like, you're not going to make that move. Like you can't really make a trade in a redraft for a guy that is in that top 3. The Trouts, the Tatis, the uninjured Acunas, Betts, the big pitchers like DeGrom. It's like the person who has him picked him for a reason. They like him.
Yeah.
And unless there's real issue that the guy might be gone for the season, something really changes. You're not going to make the move. It's just too hard to do. I would say that, especially if you're in a league and you're in 4th or 5th place and you're thinking like, what could I do to really set a charge? I would go trade for Fernando Tatis, because if he comes back, which is likely, he can really change things from you. And who cares if he doesn't come back? And instead of you finishing in 5th, you finish in 7th.
Okay, let me throw some other injured players in various stages of coming back. Would you have interest in Luis Severino?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I definitely would.
Isn't he on the IL?
Huh?
That's what I just said. Yeah.
Well, what's his injury?
He's coming back.
He had surgery.
Yeah, he had Tommy John. He's coming back from that. He was supposed to be back around now.
Does he have a hard reporting date?
His reporting date was supposed to be around the 1st of August.
Really?
It got pushed back 3 weeks because of a setback he had. The setback was unrelated to the surgery. He did something to his leg on a delivery, which set him out of his routine for 2 weeks.
It might be a risky transaction.
Yeah, you're looking at 5 weeks of him. The truth is, the talent's there. He's on a team that can win games. Yeah, compared to what else is out there, sure. I mean, he's a guy that could literally play the last month of the season and be a top 25 pitcher during that stretch. Chris Sale definitely is one of those guys.
Okay, Domingo Germán was thrown out into the pool. He's got shoulder inflammation. Would you have any interest in Domingo Germán with a 0 fab bid?
I was going to make this confession, like I did something really bad in fantasy this week.
Not you.
Something that is hard to admit to. It's like the fab was really, really active, and it's only one time a week. You put in guys, you put in guys as like fallbacks. Like you really don't want them, but anything.
Yeah, I understand.
So I dropped Domingo Germán, and I wound up getting for $1 Wade LeBlanc.
No, I don't do that.
Well, so I'm not going to start. Well, when I scoped it out, I had Wade LeBlanc pitching at home versus the Royals, but due to the trades, his game got moved up. Now he's pitching at home versus Atlanta, which is not a good thing. I think Wade LeBlanc versus the Royals would have been a good singular week matchup. Because the St. Louis is a good park for them. The Royals don't do well on the road, and they also don't hit lefties well. And to show that I'm right about this is that on Sunday the Royals are going to face John Lester, and Lester's going to have a fine game. But the problem with Germán is that he had a really good pitch game 2 weeks ago, then an okay pitch game, got hurt. Then before that he was playing like out of the bullpen. I don't know what their role is for the guy. So I would pick him up, but I wouldn't pick him up to stash him. I would pick him up when he got healthy. And I'd be perfectly happy paying $2 instead of $1, rather than waste the spot. I have a lot of injured players. I mean, I have, Brandon Belt and Josh Rojas and Mike Trout, Francisco Lindor. There's a lot of injured players out there. They got to be pretty decent for me to keep space on them or fill some function. Like for instance, I would keep Taylor Rogers, the relief pitcher from Minnesota, on my injured list because he will get saves. The
When
last
he comes back.
the
When he
last
comes
weeks
back.
of the season, they have to have a real function.
What about Anthony Rendon? I dumped him. He's $39. I dumped him yesterday.
I understand dumping him. I have him in that new half league, and I'm going to keep him because if he plays, he's probably going to be better than anyone else out there. But
Well, you've got him on the bench, I presume, so it's not costing you that much.
yeah, he's in that injured slot, so it doesn't cost.
There's a
much.
big difference. If you're in a keeper league and you've got a guy named Rendon, and you think as there could very well be the possibility this year is an outlier in the extreme negative, but he's not costing anything for you to keep him in position on your roster. You might want to keep him. I mean, the guy had good numbers before this year.
Furthermore, if you were in a keeper league, you might, and you're out of it, he's the kind of guy that you might want.
Right.
Like a team that's in the hunt might have him on a team thinking that they've had a fill-in that's done better.
Yeah.
Or some, a David Fletcher or something weird like that. Maybe you make a move now and you pick up the guy. I have little doubt. Third base at the very top is a lot stronger than it has been in the past, but I have little doubt that I would pick Rendon in the top 4 third baseman, top 5 third baseman.
Yeah.
Like for instance, who would you rather have next year? Would you rather have Rendon or Arenado?
I'd rather have Arenado.
You know what? I know
But it's close, is what I'm saying.
Well, Rendon.
Yeah, if Rendon ever comes back to Rendon, it's close. Yeah.
If you take the Rendon of 2019, not of 2020 and 2021, Arenado cannot even carry his glove. I shouldn't say that because Arenado is an outstanding fielder at third. So is Rendon, but Arenado has not, by dint of his career, put up the career numbers with a consistency I think that Rendon did until this year.
Rendon's had one big year. Arenado's had about 5.
He had 27 homers and
He's had
110.
one
He
big
had
year.
27 homers and 110 runs
He's had
batted
two.
in
He's had 2 good years.
2017.
He's had 2 good years. Yeah, that's the difference.
Well, Arenado's had more than 2 good
But
years.
Arenado's also played in Colorado.
Arenado's played in Colorado, and Arenado has bad home and away hitting splits.
That's true.
And we're sort of seeing him here. We're sort of seeing.
Andrew Haney got blasted tonight.
Well, they
That's heinous.
the Angels literally got junk for Haney in the trade.
Yeah.
What are you going to get for Haney? He's really not that good.
Well, no, they got a guy named Jansen Junk, which I think is so perfect.
His name is Junk.
Yeah, his name is actually Junk. Jansen Junk.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah, so
His name is Junk. I traded Haney for Junk.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the Yankees.
Junk. Is it Jung or
Junk? Junk. So
that's as bad a name as the field goal kicker for Houston for 2 years. For 2 years, whose last name was Suckup.
well, we had with the Rays a relief pitcher who was pretty good. His name was literally Grant Ball 4.
Oh, that's good.
But can I ask you a question about my team? To give your opinion on something. I have a team where I need to cut somebody, or I need to make a trade, and because I have too many shortstops, so I picked up guys due to injuries, right? So I have a shortstop spot, I have a middle infielder spot, I have 2 utility spots. So that's 4 spots. Got it? Okay. Right. One of the only guy we're going to talk about who's not a shortstop is Shohei Ohtani, who theoretically could be dropped, but he's one of the utility spots, right? So we got 3 spots. I got 4 names, shortstop only. Brandon Crawford, Willie Adames, Corey Seager, Tim Anderson. Who's the odd man?
All good players.
I cannot play one of them.
Tell me who the 4 are again.
Willie Adames, Brandon Crawford, Corey Seager, and Tim Anderson.
Good night.
You
could put 2 in utility.
Well, then you'd be benching Shohei Ohtani.
Well, I wouldn't do that.
That's what I'm saying. So there's 5 guys in 4 spots, and I'm kind of stuck. I put a note out
Depends
there.
on what you need. If you need speed, then I keep Anderson. If you don't need speed, I would
It-
cut
it-
Anderson.
It's a head-to-head thing, so speed doesn't matter as much. Though my team has done well. I don't know if you ever play head-to-head. My team has done well in the speed category because my catcher in this league at Yahoo has been a kind of Falafa.
I haven't played head-to-head since I was in college.
This is a league that goes back to my college days. You know, it's a league.
You lobbed a softball at me, Doug. Okay, so let me ask you another question. What do we do about Berto Mondisse?
I mean, he's an IL spot, right? Keeping your IL spot
All year long?
Huh?
All year long, but if he comes back, he could get you 15 steals from now to the end of the season.
Yeah, that's one of the guys that if you're in that spot where you're like in 5th place, wondering how you can make a difference, maybe you trade somebody, you trade a pitcher for Aldo to see if he comes back, he could be a difference maker. And who really cares if you come in 5th or come in 8th? It doesn't make a difference.
Would you put in it? Would you try to lowball an offer for Alex Bregman?
Yeah, I think that people believe that he's coming back and he'll be fine. But whereas I think there's a lot more doubt on the Mondisse side and the Rendon side.
Well, Mondisse's been in and out.
More out than in.
You're right.
Yeah, no, he came back for 2 weeks. Of those 2 weeks, he sat for like the 3rd and 4th day with a problem, came back, played a few more days, and then he went on the injured reserve. He's played like 8 games total.
Yeah.
You know,
What about Jack Flaherty? He comes off the IL on August the 17th.
you got to like him. And St. Louis is going to try to play. They're in a fairly weak division. They should get some wins. He's better than all their other starting pitchers, right? Better than J.A. Happ and Wade LeBlanc and John Lester.
Okay, can I throw one out there? Both of you guys know more.
Feel free.
You both of you know more about this than I do, partly because I got confused and couldn't keep up with the story. What was play on words? The deal with Trevor Story. What happened there?
They tried to lower their demands, Merrill, as I understand it, at the 11th hour.
Who did
And it just plain backfired. They wanted to move him, but they were asking to. I read. You can't. I'm just telling you what I read. Okay, I read they lowered their demand in order to trade for Story, but it was too late. That a lot of the deals were in place.
You're talking about the Cardinals.
No, there was a rumor with the Cardinals. They're actually Tampa Bay. Why would Tampa Bay be trying to get? They've got shortstops all over the place. But Tampa was in on the negotiations, from what I read. But they I think, Doug, I think you said this last week. I think if you present a qualifying offer, the team might get just as good a player.
That's what I read about. I heard that the draft pick that they were going to get is fairly decent, right? And they said
you get to pick the
they
player.
said that everything that they were offered was less than what they thought they'd get from the draft choice, and that was their.
But you the team, the Rockies get to pick the player. But the Rockies.
You mean if he signs elsewhere,
They get a draft choice.
And they get a compensation player?
Yep.
That they have a better chance than they do if they make a trade?
That's what they felt. The thing about it is when you're trading with you remember when Rendon got moved, there is this thought that goes beyond us, goes beyond the owners too, that everybody that is on the Rockies, their offensive numbers are inflated by where they're playing.
Right.
We saw that when Tulowitzki got traded late in his career, the Blue Jays made a point to say that they wanted him for his fielding, and they were okay with him hitting 270. You know what I mean? They actually, so the feeling that Colorado has about Dylan Arenado is literally, this is probably our marquee Colorado player of all time. Maybe him, maybe Todd Helton, right? And you go, I think he's really, really great. Then you're getting offers that you might see as an offer for a lesser pitcher. Like, what did Chris Bryant go for? He went for
There was a decent prospect. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, no, yeah, they got the shortstop the older shortstop than Hilliard Ramos.
Yeah.
And they got a 20-year-old kid that throws 100 miles an hour.
Right.
God, the name Alexander Canario. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of trade that was probably on the table for Story.
Okay.
And they didn't feel that was enough. And the truth is that wasn't enough for Bryant. So you get in a situation, the Cubs are saying, I'd rather take this than the draft choice. The Colorado Rockies said, I'd rather take the draft choice than this. That's an opinion by their own management. The truth is the Rockies have done pretty well with their draft choices.
Okay. I used to be a reporter. I can't help myself. I have a follow-up question.
Feel free.
Given all of this, and thank you, the insights are great. What is the reason that since that inauspicious night of inability to move Story for anything satisfactory, I have not found Story in the Rocky lineup in the nearly a week since? What's going on with that?
Yeah, that is a good question. Why he's not playing?
Did the guy suddenly get hurt because he wasn't traded? I mean, were his feelings hurt? Can you go on the IL for that?
Yeah,
strange.
Anything I would say would be mere speculation. I can imagine a world where I had a really good employee who was so pissed off that he was a taxing thing to my store or whatever, and I would say, hey, just take the week off. Come back when your head's together.
Well, I have to say, in fairness to the players,
Well, the Rockies.
when the guy's name is thrown out there, and we've seen this happen in many instances, also often in the National Football League. If the name is out there and it's become public that your team is trying to move you and then they don't, it's not exactly a public relations success story for the team.
That's what I was saying before about how like the bridges have been burned between the Cubs and Chris Bryant.
We have a question from a Facebook user.
Yeah, there is one here. I put this one up here, the Facebook user, because I just saw it on the Facebook comment side. Hey, Merrill, read this question. Can you read that? Because your voice is so perfect.
Are we talking about Yelich returning to his 2019 form? Will he return to his 2019 form when he returns?
Let's all do this in unison on the count of three. 1,
No.
2, 3. No. Yeah, it's like this season's gone from. He'll have a moment or two to make you feel better about the guy. But the truth is, the home run thing was a bit of a fluke. It's looking more and more like a Jacob Ellsbury year.
Well, as my brother says so often, there was a really live baseball in that year when Rendon and Yelich and all these guys did everything they did. It was not the baseball they're playing with today. But of course, we know that the only cheaters in the game are the players on the field and the managers, never the lords of baseball.
Okay, Merle, for your edification, yesterday, Sunday, this year of our Lord, August the 1st.
One.
One.
On August the 1st. Well, some people call it the 1st, but I wanted to see if you're awake. Trevor Story played and batted third. He was 1 for 4.
Well, then this is the first day he's played this week.
And it wouldn't be that odd for you to hold
Sorry
that
for
out of the
fact
lineup.
checking you, but
It would be that odd for you to hold
okay.
somebody out of the lineup if
They
he was
will
actually in
take
active discussions of trades.
they will take players out of the lineup. Rank the top 5 most powerful teams, 1 to 5, starting with Doug and then Merle in baseball.
Well, you mean when powerful?
Running that were power teams. Rank the top 5 most powerful teams in your opinion in baseball.
Before, can I clarify real quick? In my mind, being powerful does not necessarily equate to the fact that they're going to win the most games. Or
Yeah, that's not the question. The question is power ratings. They do this every week. MLB has just published new power ratings, and I'm simply asking, in your opinion,
I think the Dodgers probably moved back to number 1.
Number 5, who are the top 5 most powerful teams in baseball?
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, let Doug answer.
Yeah, I'm going to go through this real quick, just running through the teams in my head. So it would be the Dodgers, the Astros, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the last team would probably be the Giants, maybe the Padres.
Okay.
And not in that order. Let me reorder it. It would be Dodgers 1. Yeah, forget it. Keep that order. That's good enough. I'm parsing hairs, splitting hairs.
You got the Dodgers 1. Who do you have 2?
2. I said the Astros 2. That's what I said.
All right, who's 3?
Yankees 3.
Yankees.
Red Sox 4, and then we probably the fifth spot. I'm on the fence of between the Giants and the Padres. It's one of those 2 teams. Probably the Padres on paper.
Did I hear you right? The New York Yankees.
If you just look at the power of their lineup,
I'm just ragging on you, Doug. They're playing better.
No, I mean, I think
I'm just ragging on you. You can make that argument, and you're perfectly right to do that.
Yeah, I just think that you look at that lineup and you go, that's a scary lineup. No, the truth is, it takes more than just having the best players to win games. And I'm counting on.
It takes a lot more.
I'm actually, I still think there's a reasonable chance the Dodgers don't make the playoffs, because I think that there's a big question about whether that group of players plays well together. And I do believe I think their management is poor and they're rich and stupid.
Well, they got too many. They got too many people with their fingers in the pie. Merrill, who's your top 5?
Well, since they're plus minus differential in runs scored is with the 15 runs yesterday, probably up to about 182. It's hard not to pick the Dodgers 1. I've got Toronto 2nd. On Toronto,
yeah, that's a good pick.
I've got Toronto 2nd. You've got at least 5 batters in Toronto with a shot at 100 runs batted in. I've got San Diego 3rd, Cincinnati 4th, and Chicago White Sox 5th.
I forgot the White Sox, but I put them below those. I think that I like the picks. Yeah, I did. What do you really like about Cincinnati? I want you to tell me how much you like Cincinnati, so they'll be my pick to win the National League Central.
How much I like who?
Cincinnati. I need to pick somebody to win the National League Central, and I don't know who now that the Cubs are gone. I've been picking the Cubs for so many years.
I got to be perfectly honest with you. I think the Brewers have enough to hang on because they have a big lead. Cincinnati's problem is they can score a bunch of runs, but their pitching is going to let them down. Ultimately, they don't have the pitching they need.
I mean,
if you put me up against the wall, Doug, I'd have to say I would like to see Cincinnati do it too, but I don't think they have the pitching. But they can hit. You got to remember now they're still hitting, and they moved to 6 or 7 games over 500, and they haven't had the best hitter in their lineup now for nearly a month, Castellanos.
Yep. Is there pitching?
I like that. And who did you pick number 4?
Cincinnati.
Wait a minute. I wrote it down. I had Los Angeles, Toronto, San Diego, Cincinnati, and Chicago White Sox.
Why did you pick San Diego? The pitching is tanked.
See, I misconstrued you when you say who's the most powerful team. I was thinking in terms of offense. I know their pitching has.
That's fine. That's fine. All right, I'll take that. All right, that's fine. I agree with you.
They score a lot of runs.
But they may lose Tatis, and that will affect their offense. My top 5 are Los Angeles 1.
I'm sorry?
The Dodgers number 1.
Okay. Are these your picks or are these the actual?
No, I'm going to give you the actual from MLB today, but I want to give you mine.
Okay.
I have Tampa number 2.
Who?
Tampa.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Do what?
I think Tampa's going to fade.
I don't think so. It's the best run outfit in baseball. I have San Francisco number 3, with all due respect to my patron saint, Lenny Melnick. They haven't tanked yet. Lenny said they're going to tank, and I agree with him, but I'm still waiting for them to tank. I've got the Giants number 3. I've got the White Sox number 4. No. Let me back up. Neither of you said Houston.
I did.
Doug did.
Oh, you did? Houston's
number 2.
Houston's number 2. Houston's close to being number 1. I got to back up on this. I'm flip-flopping more than a dolphin at SeaWorld. Number 1, Dodgers. Number
felt-
2, Houston.
I felt good about Dodgers Houston being 1-2. After that, it's a little bit,
Yeah.
you know.
Number 3, Tampa and the White Sox close, but I'll put White Sox first because they got better starting pitching. Tampa 4 and the Giants 5. Now,
Okay.
here's –
Okay, give me the
MLB has the Dodgers 1. The Giants 2.
Wow, they like them more than me.
Huh?
I was
The
shocked.
The Astros 3. The White Sox 4. And the Rays number 5.
I feel like I undershot the White Sox because that pitching staff has been so solid and so healthy, and their hitters are pretty good. And they're getting better hitters back. I think I undersold them a little bit. I think the Rays are done.
I'm real close to saying Houston's the most powerful team in baseball.
they are
Their
good.
bullpen is better than LA, guys.
They
Their
are
bullpen right now is better than LA.
That's my oversight. I don't know. I had a blind spot. I would have put Houston in there, but that's all right.
And I can see if you're looking just at offense, you're missing the White Sox because their
All
strength
I'm
is their
saying
pitching.
is, would you agree? I think Houston's bullpen is better than the Dodgers right now.
Well, they made a lot of moves to shore it up.
They picked up some outstanding
Their
bullpen.
bullpen is so good that they traded a really reliable, leveraged seventh inning pitcher who's been on the team, and I can't think of his name.
Joe Smith.
Thank
Who?
you.
Joe
Thank
Smith's
you.
the guy he's thinking of.
Their bullpen is so strong. They put Joe Smith in a trade, and they still have a good bullpen.
Well, they added Graveman, Matan, and Garcia.
Right.
Jimmy Garcia is, as much as I didn't like him as a closer, he's a little bit homer prone. He's a perfectly great 6th, 7th inning man.
Who are you talking about?
Yimmy Garcia.
Yimmy, yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say?
Well, I signed Graveman on my Rotis team, thinking Graveman would be the perfect closer, but they're apparently keeping Presley in it.
Presley's done a good job, bro.
Well, Graveman.
He's pretty good.
Presley's on paternity list, so Graveman's got a couple. Probably get a save or two this week.
Is he having twins?
I don't know what he's having. He's probably having Astros. Why would you? Oh, the thing I would say about Tampa Bay, like I live in Orlando. If you guys don't know that, so my local paper follows the Rays. That's who it is. I wouldn't say I'm a Rays fan, though I do know Rays fans, and I do root for them at some level. I like going to the games. The thing that stands out for me about them being well managed is something changed for me this year, and that it was that the team that I once had season tickets for, Tampa Bay Lightning, won their 3rd cup in the last 15 years, and the Tampa Bay Lightning payroll is $18 million more than the Rays payroll, which means that the market has money. The Rays just refuse to spend it. And since they're doing what they're doing based on their just refusal to spend something, I can't say that they're good managers anymore.
Well,
If they were actually poor, the truth is Tampa Bay's media market is the 8th largest in America.
Douglas, is the Tampa Bay Lightning arena filled at more than 15% capacity?
Well, that's true. There's a difference.
Nobody comes out to support the Rays.
That doesn't really matter.
There's
though.
minor league teams that have better attendance than the
Doug,
Rays.
I have to say another thing too for
The
you.
Rays-
If you root hard enough and long enough for Tampa Bay, you're going to get stung.
The Rays TV contract gets them a few $1 million a year. The Lightning TV contract gets them about $500,000 a year. That makes up for the fact that yes, the Lightning get about 3,000 more fans a game. They're sold out, but you're talking about a stadium that only seats about 22,000 people.
I think we're going to adjourn the session, but I have to tell you, Doug, I hope you will agree with me. What a missed opportunity not putting that ballpark down in Ybor City. You go to a ball game, you come out and light up a hand-rolled Cuban cigar, then you go over to Colombia and watch the flamenco dancers. Come on, man.
Can
you imagine how great Ybor City would be?
I told this story before.
Stadium?
It's like, yeah, you from where I live, you drive down, you hit that 301, you shoot over. Ybor City is a 45, 50-minute drive from me. I was a season ticket holder when the Lightning played at the Cow Palace, was right on the corner of 430, right on the corner of I-4 and 301.
Right.
I could get there in 40 minutes. when they moved across the bay, I kept my tickets for 1 year, and I'm like, this is too much work, because it literally added an hour to the drive time.
You can't go to Tampa without motoring over to Ybor City and having dinner at the Columbia.
I really think that
You've got to do that.
I'm
You know
surprised.
what, Mitch? I've never been there.
Oh, it's a great place.
I've never seen it.
Flamenco dancers.
Well, the thing about it is, like,
Ybor City.
the thing about
Ybor
it is,
City's in the suburbs of Tampa.
yeah,
I know, I haven't seen it.
It's a fun place. I would assume, because I feel a little old there, that if you went there, you might feel a little bit old.
I'm old everywhere I go.
You know, because
I'm old even at the funerals. They look at me and say, "How come you're not in the casket? You're older than that guy laying in the casket." And I say,
it's a party scene. It's a party scene for like the 30-ish people. It's not real young, but it's
everything is for the 30s. Nothing is for us old farts.
Well, no, there are things out there for like 23-year-olds. You know,
I'm thinking of going to a Steely Dan concert. Am I dating myself?
Doug, I'm so old. My favorite bar that I go to has a coffin ready for me.
Well, listen, gentlemen, I'm ready to adjourn. Are you okay? We've had a good one.
You got any parting words of wisdom, Merrill?
Merrill, go ahead.
My only parting words, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I haven't had this much fun in a long time.
I told you it'd be easy. All we do is you come. I was this close to getting my friend Adam to come back tonight, but Adam has moved to Boston. He's settling in this April 1st, so we'll see him before too long.
Okay.
But it was great having you, Merrill.
Thank you.
Remember tomorrow morning, 9:00 in the chat room.
Okay.
Lane's back with the flagship show.
Okay.
You get me and George on Sunday. I'm on it around 1-ish.
King Hap on Wednesday.
I was forget about King Hap because I do something Wednesday nights. I listened to a show one time, and it was about. We're allowed to talk about some other sports, but I really could care less about mixed martial arts. Like talk about something. But their show's on there. Andrea on 1:00 on Saturday. King Hap, of course. He always says nice things about me. I don't mean him any disservice. I just have a Wednesday night commitment.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you around. Thanks for coming around.
Thank you. Catch you in the
Facebook
morning.
user says, great show.
Oh, thank you, Andy.
As long as we make Facebook user happy.
If Andrea and Lenny are happy, I'm happy.
See you.
Thank you, everybody, for being in the chat room. Good night.
Okay.